It's about creating a little tiny balance in a system that every day becomes more unbalanced.
The governor signs the nation's highest minimum wage bill in the country. And quenching the California drought, signs that restrictions may be changing, even though Californians are falling behind on saving water.
Welcome to Opening Day, featuring the Los Angeles Dodgers and your San Diego Padres.
Will it be a swing or a miss for the Padres this season? Experts and fans weigh in. This is Evening Edition on KPBS. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabolsi. Our top story tonight, California is leading the way with one of the most ambitious moves yet to close the national divide between rich and poor. Governor Jerry Brown signed a new law today, gradually raising the minimum wage to $15 per hour by 2022. This marks the highest statewide minimum wage in the nation. Business groups have opposed the bill, fearing the increase will cost thousands of jobs. Governor Brown says this doesn't end the struggle for a livable wage, but it is a step in the right direction.
This is about economic justice. It's about people. It's about creating a little tiny balance in a system that every day becomes more unbalanced.
Businesses with 25 or fewer employees get an extra year to raise their wage so that workers will be paid $15 by 2023. A new look for senior housing in downtown San Diego. The Housing Authority reopened the 154-room building today. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh says it was part of a renovation project which started nearly 2 years ago.
So the Housing Authority says this building used to look like something out of the Soviet Union. Now they say it looks like something from Southern California. San Diego Square has been used for subsidized senior housing since it was built in 1979. It hadn't been renovated until the Housing Authority bought the building with federal funds in 2014. Ishari Garrett said there was a point where residents worried the facility might shut down.
We were nervous, but we got through. We all stuck together and we survived it. And now look at what we have because we did.
The building was rehabbed in sections while some residents were relocated to temporary housing. Most tenants stayed through reconstruction. The project preserves San Diego Square as subsidized housing for 65 years. The Housing Authority says there is a 7 to 10 year wait list for subsidized housing in the city. 60,000 people are on that wait list. Roughly half are elderly or disabled. The Housing Authority says they're not likely to end the shortage of senior housing with one major project. Instead, they'll probably need several projects just like this one. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
While the effort to save water during California's drought have been generally good, the numbers show they still fall below the 25% less water use mandated by the state. Californians reduced their use by 23.9% since June. In San Diego County, customers of about half the water districts used more water in February than the same time period in 2013. In the city of San Diego, the reduction target is 16%. State water leaders are talking about revising mandatory water cutbacks.
And so our considerations will be to lift them entirely, not because the drought's over, but because the emergency conditions that caused us to do them are eased.
State officials announced they'll hold a workshop later this month, and any changes to the order would take effect in June. It's opening day at Petco Park, and fans were out all day gearing up for the Padres season opener against the Los Angeles Dodgers. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov takes us to the East Village block party.
Welcome to Opening Day, featuring the Los Angeles Dodgers and your San Diego Padres.
Music, food, beer, games, swag, and of course, baseball. That's what brought hundreds of fans to the East Village opening day block party Monday, even after postseason hopes were dashed last year.
High hopes still, always faithful, always want the Padres to do their best, and they're playing for a great city, and we love them. So we're going to hope for an exciting season, fun-filled days, especially for this new Padre fan.
Madison here just turned 1, but JT Stowe has her beat. He was just 3 months old at his first Padres opening day.
I've been coming for 8 years and I'm 7 years old.
Stowe's parents have nicknamed him Opening Day Kid.
Since we got John Jay now and Alexi Ramirez and Christian Bethencourt, we might have a different season.
There are indeed new players this year. A young roster, new team management, even new uniforms.
This year is completely different. Last year was the big expectations, the marquee names, the big players that people actually knew. This year they've kind of dialed it down with a little younger team. It seems like they're trying to develop for the long term a little bit more. Now with that, the expectations aren't that high. Now the Padres still think they're going to be competitive, but they're in a tough division in the National League West, so they're kind of swimming upstream. Let's see how it goes.
Win or lose, Opening Day Kid waits for this game all year. His favorite part?
That it's an opening day ball, and I give it to the military people that are all the way at the top.
An opening day tradition to honor his grandpa who served in the Navy. Katie Shulev, KPBS News.
And a tech company introduces a modern upgrade to America's pastime. Associated Press reporter Josh Replogle explains how it keeps pitchers in the game and off the disabled list.
So we have one for the chest, one for the pelvis joint, pelvis segment.
The 5 sensors outfitted in a sleeve, a cleat, and a shirt.
Pockets already ironed onto them.
Help Matt Benedict, a minor league pitcher affiliated with the Pittsburgh Pirates, keep track of his arm angles, torque, and hip speed. The information downloadable to his phone is designed to keep him from slipping into bad pitching habits.
It's a good tool to give me feedback on things that I'm working on.
Biometrics baseball is the latest frontier as teams and players look for any kind of edge. Team doctors say the technology could lower the risk of injury like tearing a ligament, an epidemic among pitchers, often requiring Tommy John surgery.
Even if it's once a month, daily, whatever it is, if you see the variations in whatever analytics you have, you could definitely figure out why that is and then go about changing it and seeing how you need to attack it.
And after you unplug them, they turn the color of the joint.
The tech company Modus has been monitoring 750 pitchers over the past 18 months, compiling data. In-game use for major and minor leagues isn't allowed this year, but players can wear them during workouts, arming themselves with the latest technology, which could one day be used to prevent a pitcher from reaching his limit before it's too late. Josh Replogle, The Associated Press.
The California Supreme Court says workers should be allowed to sit if their jobs can be performed while sitting. Today's opinion of the court attempted to clarify the state's rules on when employers must provide seating to workers. The opinion stems from lawsuits brought by cashiers at the CVS drugstore chain and tellers at Chase Bank who say they were wrongly denied a place to sit while working. SeaWorld's decision to put an end to orca breeding program at its parks has been met with praise by animal rights activists. Some marine scientists are not as happy with the fact that they will lose opportunities to study the animals to help them in the wild. Scientists say as the orcas currently in captivity age, research will be limited to aging animals. Meanwhile, SeaWorld's corporate parent wants President Barack Obama and the U.S. government to put pressure on Japan to shut down the commercial whaling industry in that country. The CEOs of both SeaWorld and the Humane Society of the United States have sent a letter to the White House. The University of California announced today it increased spots for California freshmen in the fall by 15%. The announcement comes after a state audit blasted the system for admitting more out-of-state students while cutting in-state enrollment. KPBS reporter Megan Burks has more.
Today's announcement also says UC San Diego will cap the number of out-of-state students it admits next year. The campus had the sharpest increase in out-of-state admissions among those offering fewer spots to Californians. They climbed 126% between 2010 and 2015, or about 3,600 students. The admissions trend caught the attention of the state auditor last week. In a scathing report, she argues more out-of-state students should have meant funding for more Californians, not fewer. They pay about 3 times what resident students pay. Here's what one local principal had to say.
If we thought that our students were at a disadvantage because of where they live, that would not sit well with us. But at the same time, we also understand that it's highly competitive, and we have excellent schools in California. And when you have excellent schools, it's going to attract kids from all over the place. So it's one of those double-edged swords.
UC San Diego did not comment for this story. In a rebuttal to the audit, the University of California says in-state enrollment tracks with state funding. It sent acceptance letters to 66,000 Californians for the fall, including many more Latinos and first-generation college students than in 2015. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Keeping the faith. New numbers show a downward trend for enrollment at Catholic schools around the country. It was on the agenda for a recent Catholic education convention in San Diego. KPBS editor Tom Fudge explains why education leaders are not giving up hope.
The annual report by the NCEA shows the trend of recent decades has continued in the past year. Though 14 new Catholic schools opened in the U.S., 86 consolidated or closed. Tom Burnford, interim president of the association, said the closures are a reflection of demographics and geography. Many Catholic schools have closed in poor inner-city neighborhoods. But, he said,
for many parents, they want a Catholic school education. And the schools are alive, they're thriving, and they're strong. So we have challenges, but we've been doing this for 1,000 years.
In the San Diego diocese, one Oceanside Catholic school will close next year. One new school, Juan Diego Academy in Chula Vista, opened in 2015. Tom Fudge, KPBS News.
Her first name means lotus flower in Sanskrit. She's the California Attorney General, and Kamala Harris is the Democratic Party favorite to replace retiring Senator Barbara Boxer. KPBS investigative reporter Amita Sharma takes a look at Harris's roots, her stances, and her chances of becoming the state's next U.S. Senator.
Voters tend to assess candidates on the 2 Ps and the big N, policies, persona, and the narrative. Here's U.S. Senate candidate Kamala Harris telling her narrative at an event put on by Emily's List, a group devoted to electing pro-choice women to office.
You see, my parents met when they were graduate students at the University of California, Berkeley, in the 1960s while they were active in the civil rights movement.
Harris's father is from Jamaica and taught economics at Stanford University. Her mother was an endocrinologist and breast cancer researcher from India.
Marching and shouting for justice. Who spent full time marching and shouting for this thing called justice.
Her influences were the icons of the civil rights movement, Thurgood Marshall, Charles Hamilton Houston, and Constance Baker Motley. They were lawyers, and she says their heroism inspired her to study law. But when she chose to be a prosecutor, she told journalist Katie Couric she had to defend her decision to her family as she would a thesis.
I have witnessed what I think is essentially a false choice that's been presented about this approach to life, which is that you are either in favor of public safety or in favor of civil rights and civil liberties. It's a false choice. You can be both. And that's how I've approached my work and my public service.
Later, as district attorney of San Francisco County, she declined to seek the death penalty against the killer of a police officer. That raised the ire of Senators Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, and then Attorney General Bill Lockyer. Harris went on to write a book called Smart on Crime, in which she argues the most effective way to stop crime is through early intervention. She told NBC's Matt Lauer she threatened to prosecute parents of elementary school school children who were habitually truant.
And as far as I'm concerned, a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime, and we need to treat it as seriously as we would any other issue, because invariably that kid will be the high school dropout who will be the crime victim and the perpetrator.
Harris once dated former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, who was a highly influential Speaker of the House in the 1980s and 90s. Some accounts allege he's paved a political career for her. Harris has also been called the female Barack Obama, and the president once described her as the best-looking attorney general in the country. She told Currit comments about a woman's beauty in the professional realm are irrelevant to her.
I refuse to be distracted from the work that I need to get done.
In the U.S. Senate race, Harris has brandished her credentials and what it means to stand up for the people of California, as she did here during the 2015 State Democratic Party convention.
It means defending collective bargaining rights for working Americans. It means taking on those science deniers who insist that the earth is flat, the Loch Ness Monster is real, and climate change doesn't exist.
And she's for immigration reform.
It is time for a full pathway to citizenship.
There have been missteps, though. Harris's campaign has spent nearly half of the money she raised through September of last year. Some of the funds were spent on multiple consultants and swanky hotels. Harris is best known for standing up to the big banks who were accused by several states of rubber stamping foreclosures without due diligence. She didn't like their initial settlement offer.
They were offering California somewhere between $2 and $4 billion. I thought that was crumbs on the table, so I pulled California out of the conversation. And then when we were able to get what we finally got, we accepted that after a lot of heavy negotiations, which is that we brought California $18 billion instead.
But consumer activists are puzzled over the Attorney General's strategy and pace in her criminal investigation into how customers got left with a multi-billion-dollar bill for the closure of the San Onofre nuclear power plant.
If the Attorney General would give the same emphasis to her enforcing the law in this case as she is in pursuing higher office, the case would be over by now.
I'll have that story tomorrow. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
And Harris is just one of several candidates trying to be the next senator from California. Join us next month for California Counts Race for the Senate, a full-on debate with the candidates who want your vote. That starts Tuesday, May 10th at 7 right here on KPBS. A Supreme Court ruling today says when states draw voting districts, they can count everyone in the district and not just eligible voters. In doing so, the court unanimously endorsed election maps that bolster the growing political influence of Latinos. The case offered a test of the one person, one vote principle outlined by the Supreme Court in 1964, that political districts be roughly equal in population. Under pressure tonight, an international cast of the rich and powerful following a massive tax evasion leak. Now the U.S. Justice Department is checking for evidence of possible criminal wrongdoing that may link back to the United States or its financial system. Associated Press reporter Matthew Burgoyne takes a closer look at the investigation.
Some of the world's most powerful and wealthy people are on the defensive after the release of millions of records on offshore financial dealings, raising questions over the widespread use of such tactics to avoid taxes and political oversight.
There's a huge industry here that we're looking at, and I think that's probably one of the big takeouts from this is the size of this industry and the amount of money that flows through.
An international coalition of media outlets on an investigation with the Washington-based International Consortium of Investigative Journalists brought to light details of the offshore assets and services based on a cache of 11.5 million records. The ICIJ said an anonymous source provided internal documents from the Panama-based law firm Mossack Fonseca, one of the world's largest creators of shell companies. The co-founder of the firm confirmed the documents being investigated were authentic and illegally obtained by hackers.
All those names that show up there, including the football players, including the mafia types, all of those are not our clients. They are clients of bank intermediaries. that bought one of our incorporated companies, sold it, and those people used it for who knows what.
According to the ICIJ's website, numerous banks have worked with the Panama-based company to create offshore accounts.
As to the scope of this, the extent of this, we can't comment at this stage on this, but as far as the banks more specifically are concerned, there's a lot that is already required from the European banks in terms of compliance.
Past and present political figures from various countries are among those named in the reports. In Russia, the scandal faced an effective coverage ban, with Russian television making no mention of it Monday morning.
There aren't any accounts directly connecting Putin to the companies, but even if there were, it is unlikely that this would shock his supporters in Russia.
A spokesman for Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested the reports are aimed at smearing the country in a parliamentary election year.
It's obvious that the intention, the main target of this attack, was in the first place against our country, and then against President Putin himself.
Iceland's foreign minister defended his country's prime minister, who has previously been accused of having financial conflicts of interest.
In fact, it is quite strange to put his face on a poster with some criminals over the world. That is something that is unfair and unpolite and should not be seen.
The ICIJ said the documents involve over 210,000 companies and more than 14,000 clients of Mossack Fonseca. The nonprofit group said it would release the full list of companies and people linked to them early next month. Matthew Burgoyne, Associated Press.
When you call 911 in San Diego County, you'll most likely get a first responder who is either a paramedic or an emergency medical technician. But there's a third type of responder that's actually quite rare in the state, but more common here in San Diego and Imperial counties. From our news partner, iNews source Leo Castañeda takes a closer look at the numbers.
There are more than 80,000 mostly EMTs and paramedics in California. Among those are a separate class of emergency medical personnel called advanced EMTs. There are only 100 advanced EMTs in the whole state, and if you've never heard of an advanced EMT, you're not alone. They have an emergency medical responder license, somewhere between a regular EMT and a paramedic. They can do things like administer some emergency medication for allergic reactions or diabetes. One reason a county in the state would use an advanced EMT instead of a paramedic is because they might have trouble hiring and keeping paramedics. This often happens in rural areas. So when I looked at the numbers, it seemed strange to me that San Diego, which is not particularly rural, had about 1/5 of all the advanced EMTs in the state. I wondered why. Well, I found out that the agency that uses these specialized personnel is a Border Patrol. They employ 14 agents with advanced EMT licenses as part of the Border Patrol Surge, Trauma, and Rescue Unit. Advanced EMTs can actually provide someone with an IV. That's important because agents often find migrants and stranded hikers out in the desert and mountain suffering from dehydration. Last fiscal year, those agents rescued more than 100 people. For more information on advanced EMTs and to see how many emergency medical responders there are in each California county, go to inewssource.org. For KPBS news partner iNewsSource, I'm Leo Castañeda.
And we had perfect opening day weather, clear skies, and it was sunny and warm. What's on deck for the rest of the week? Stephanie Olmo has more on tonight's KPBS Weather Report.
Well, really, it's been pretty quiet all across the Golden State. No complaints here. Area of high pressure remaining in place. And, well, we will see the dry weather pattern continue throughout much of this week, but bad news maybe for some, right? But good news because we are under a severe to an exceptional drought. So we will see the return for some wet weather as we take you into the latter part of the week. So checking out satellite and radar, pretty quiet now around Redding down to Los Angeles, San Diego, around San Diego, much of the surrounding areas. It's going to be generally quiet tonight where we do find some showers actually as we take it off to the east, parts of Nevada as well as parts of the Four Corners region. Moving right along here, places like Mount Laguna, pretty clear there. San Diego, Chula Vista, really quiet conditions, and we'll see things change, like I've mentioned, as we head into the latter half of the week. All right, taking a look here at the temperatures for tonight. Around Ramona will be tumbling down to at about 41 degrees, 57 in San Diego. Mount Laguna right near that freezing mark at about 33 degrees, 51, and relatively quiet in Borrego Springs. As we take you into the day on Tuesday, temperatures will be warming up to above average levels. We'll get more of an offshore flow, and that's pretty much what's going to allow things to warm up across central as well as southern California. San Diego a bit warmer compared to what we saw today. All right, we fast forward a bit. Later on in the week, we are keeping track of a trough that's just going to set its stage here across California. And that's going to allow for a couple of showers around central, even southern parts of California. You can pick up a couple of sprinkles here Thursday and into Friday, but then we could see more wet weather as we take you into the weekend. All right, 5-day outlook for you folks in the coast. Wednesday and Thursday, low clouds to start off the day. Could see some fog during the morning hours, so watch out for poor visibility. Temperatures slowly warming up here Tuesday in the upper 60s, and then we'll be getting into the 70s throughout much of the week. And then this weekend, also looking at partly sunny skies. All right, 5-day outlook for you folks in the inland. Clouds breaking for sunshine Tuesday. Wednesday, very similar weather pattern there. Temperatures remaining in the lower 70s. Then we'll be climbing, check out here the first part of the weekend, climbing into the 80s and then dropping back into the lower 60s later at night. Your extended forecast for the mountains as we check out here Wednesday, temperatures in the 60s, 65 there Thursday. As we wrap up the work week on Friday, temperatures are warming up into the 70s and even warmer as we head into the first part of the weekend. And your extended outlook for the desert slopes as we continue throughout much of the week. It's going to be relatively tranquil here, partly sunny skies, keeping that sunshine around as we take you to Thursday as well as Friday. And for the first part of the weekend, KPBS News, I'm Stephanie Yomo.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the NewsHour Monday. The scramble for votes in Wisconsin, a day before that crucial primary. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
A cute story for you now. Needed down under, an animal lover with a talent for cuddling. Tourism marketers in Tasmania, Australia, are looking for a so-called chief wombat cuddler. They need somebody to hang out with this little guy. His name is Derek the Wombat. There's an online application and it's a temporary gig because it's only 3 days long. Well, there's also another catch, and that is that you need to be an Australian citizen to apply. As always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. From all of us here at KPBS, thanks for watching. Have a great evening.